What is going on, Eagles Nation? It is your boy, Showtime 804, getting back to it, back at it like we never left. Before we get started, thanks for all the support. For those who supported me thus far in the beginning stages of this YouTube channel that I brought to you. Subscribe, like, comment, share, do what you need to do, help your boy out, get me out there, so we can build this thing on up. So, if you looked at the title of this video, the coaching carousel, it's going to be a lot of fun and games that we got going on as far as selecting this next head coach. Couple of guys who were pretty much fan favorites have already signed and elected to become coaches for other teams, mainly Robert Saleh, Arthur Smith, respectively, have gone to the Jets and the Falcons. And so that kind of leaves us into, I won't say we're picking up the scrap heaps, because just earlier, Dan Campbell decided to leave New Orleans as the tight end coach and become the head coach of the Detroit Lions, as well as Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator from the Rams, has taken the Chargers job. So that only leaves the Eagles and the Texans job. And I believe that the Eagles probably have the more desirable destination for a head coach as opposed to the Texans. The Texans, for as bad as we say that the Eagles are a mess, the Texans are just worse. You just signed your franchise quarterback in Houston to a, lucrative deal, and now you've got turmoil where he wants out, and he's made it publicly known that he wants out. Set aside the difference between Carson Wentz, where Carson Wentz wanted to leave is merely just speculation and opinion. So where we are at this point, I know the hot name is Lincoln Riley just because of the connection with Jalen Hurts, but the Eagles brass have pretty much said that they're moving forward with Carson Wentz. So you can strike any kind of reunion with Lincoln Riley and Jalen Hurts to take place. Another guy, Ryan Day, who was once our quarterback coach with the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe it was back in 2015. And from Ohio State. Some of those names, the one thing I don't like about college coaches is that if they haven't won in the NCAA, how can you expect them to win at a NFL level? With that being said, our Urban Meyer took the Jacksonville Jaguars job, and it's going to remain to be seen how that's going to come to play, because when you're building a college roster, you have 90 guys, and you pretty much can get the best 90 guys in a certain area, and you don't have to worry about any kind of salary cap. So those guys find difficulty, I see. So if Nick Saban, who's possibly the greatest college coach of our generation, if he can't make it in the NFL, then I don't really see it happening. The only other guy who's had college success and pro success is going to be Pete Carroll. But in actuality, there was kind of short-lived success in the NFL. Some of those defensive-minded head coaches, I think it was right to pass up on, because usually with those defensive guys, they have to have a strong offensive coordinator. And what that does is, if you have a strong defensive coach with a high-powered offensive guy, that guy usually doesn't last long, and then he's fielding his own team. And so we kind of want to stay away from that, because the one thing that we're going to need is continuity. Now, if you have an offensive brain guy in a position, then you can, have you have the next line of succession, I should say. So you have your good OC, then you have your quarterback coach, your wide receiver coach. One of those guys, if your OC happens to leave, you can pencil one of those guys in to take the natural progression. So that's why I think that you stay away from a defensive coach. Let's see who's left. Josh McDaniels, I definitely want to stay away from him at all costs. And the reports are talking about how the Eagles want to have, control, the front office, mainly Howie wants control over the team. That's not going to be the case if Josh McDaniels is the head coach. Howie's going to be looking at a Chip Kelly situation where Howie is sent away. And because Josh McDaniels is going to want to run things the same way that he saw Bill Belichick run things for all those years. And I don't see Howie trying to concede that type of power. And also with Josh McDaniels, he's also had his own cheating scandals. I don't think that Jeffrey Lurie would want to be a part of that. Now, I know they had a long meeting. That also could be just to pick his brain, to get as much information to see how the Patriots run things and to see if the Eagles want to follow that type of their model. But bringing Josh McDaniels is going to be a disaster, because that's the reason we're in this mess now, because of Frank Reich leaving, because of, Josh McDaniels, pulling the rug underneath the Patriots and the Colts. He was expected to take that Colts job, and then he reneged on the deal. And I think he's going to wait it out and become the coach in waiting with the Patriots. I just see that as possibly the better fit for him, and just stay away from him at all costs. Some other guys, Brian Daboll, I was very intrigued about him. Something must have happened with his interview with the Chargers, because he was almost, penciled in to go there. You could almost write that in stone that he was supposed to go to the Chargers, but unfortunately that fell through. James Urban, Greg Roman for the Baltimore Ravens, those are some guys I would take a look at. But some of those guys that have those familiarities with the team, I think if they haven't been here in a while, then it's possible. But some of those fresh guys who left within the last 5 to 6 years, you kind of want to stay away from them, because you want fresh eyes on the whole thing. Which goes to my point about Deuce Staley. Many have clamored for him to have that position, but I think you're going to want to go in a whole new direction. With the quarterback controversy that you have, Deuce has ties to both of those guys being on this team. So you don't want to bring him into that fold. A surprise name that I actually thought about, now I can't think of his name, but the offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts. I would bring him in to look at something like that. But my dark horse, and I went back and forth about this guy, was Byron Leftwich. He's put together a couple of strong offenses under Bruce Arians. He has been a longtime quarterback in the league, so he can kind of guide Carson Wentz into the right direction. Who's a guy who's been a starting caliber quarterback and replaced for their younger option when he was with Jacksonville. So Byron Leftwich would be a strong candidate who I would like to see. Just looking at the way how he's progressed through the coaching ranks as well, even though he's only coached alongside Bruce Arians. For Bruce Arians to take him to 2 different teams shows a lot about how much he's learned in that position, and he must have a bright future. So back to Deuce. Deuce is in a spot where it's either going to be a promotion or bust, because that's where he's at. He's been passed over a couple of times for an offensive coordinator, and to go into that head coaching spot, I do think he needs to have a coordinator title under his belt in order to succeed. Now, I may be wrong, but again, that's just my take on that. And who else do we have? Like I said, no college coaches. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank. Who else is left? Oh man, Eric Bieniemy and Mike Kafka. Eric Bieniemy, that now the reports are saying that he's overqualified, and I've seen guys hint at the fact that he should just wait a couple of more years for Andy Reid to retire, kind of like how the Josh McDaniels situation is in New England. Eric Bieniemy can just wait out Andy Reid and then take over as the head coach in that, as opposed to taking a disaster waiting to happen. But like again, I said, with our team, I don't look at us as a complete disaster, but you do have to shake some things up in order to move forward. Another name that brought up, Kellen Moore. I don't like any Cowboys. I don't want any division rival coming to our team, because you know where their heart is. Yeah, they may be a new coach, but Jerry Jones would have been the guy who gave Kellen Moore his first shot. and I don't want to ever have to go in a position where it's us against them, and he knows where his heart is. We've seen that plenty of time with former Cowboys coming to us. We know where their allegiance lies. Is no hiding it. Same thing with Jason Garrett. I don't want to see him come here. That is the epitome of having a puppet. If we thought Doug Peterson was bad, Jason Garrett's going to be 20 times worse. So this is where we are, and I'm glad that they're taking the time and reaching out to as many candidates as possible, as opposed to just rushing out and getting a hire. So that way, you know, if Howie and the other brain trusts, they're doing their due diligence, and I like that. To go back to Mike Kafka. I just know he's the quarterback coach with Kansas City, and I don't know how much responsibility is on his shoulders, as far as, because Patrick Mahomes was pretty much an established product before, you know, Mike Kafka got a hold of him. And the other guy I was looking at, Joe Brady. I'm really intrigued by the possibility of Joe Brady. The only thing that bothers me with Joe Brady is the same thing that's happening with Sean McVay with the Rams. He's going to need to possibly bring out an older defensive coordinator, some guy who doesn't want any desire to be a head coach. And that way he can fill the defense, you know, set up his successor, and go from there. And excuse me, but that so that's what I'm thinking about with Joe Brady, because he is 31, and he's gonna have a couple of guys on the team who's gonna be older than him, and I don't know how that dynamic works as far as having a coach who is younger than some of his players. It works for McVay. It could possibly work for the Eagles. I'm not against it. And like I said, I just want to make sure that we get this thing right. If Carson Wentz, when I'm saying if, because Carson Wentz is the way to go. And again, we've seen more reports about how bad he is as a teammate. He's not listening to his coaches. I went over this in the last video. If you're looking at Doug and the way Doug is carrying on, then I wouldn't listen to him either. But with that being said, if Carson Wentz is that bad as far as being a coachable player, then why are the Eagles clamoring for him to be the quarterback of the team to the new coaches? If he was that bad, you wouldn't hear from anonymous sources. You would hear from coaches themselves. You would hear from players. You're not getting that because some of those leaks are gone, which also goes to the point we haven't heard any anonymous team sources, any reports, because I believe it was either Nelson Aguilar or Orlando Scandrick who was leaking those reports out to Josina Anderson, because we haven't heard anything all year. And as bad as we've played, we haven't heard any anonymous players come out speaking to that magnitude. You know, there's been a couple of things in the wind saying this and that, but nothing as strong as that topic a couple years ago that we faced. And also saw something else today, that Jason Peters wants to give it another crack. And whoever is our new coach, please, I strongly urge and suggest that you don't have anything to do with him. It is time to let some of those guys just go. If Peters wants to have a crack at a Super Bowl, then bring him on as the offensive line coach or assistant coach to Jeff Stoutland, because the reports are just Jeff Stoutland is wanting to possibly go back to Alabama. But as far as what the team is doing, they're doing the right thing. Interview as many candidates as possible, and then once you've talked to every candidate that you can, then you come up with your selection. But I don't want it to turn into, because it looked like the Doug Peterson hire was a mercy hire. We struck out on a lot of people, and it was almost like we settled with Doug Peterson. And I don't want that to go again, because there's a lot of talent that's on this team that just needs to be utilized. And if we settled on a coach like we did with Doug Peterson, now mind you, Doug did bring us a Super Bowl, and I'm forever grateful for that. But it just always, in recent years, it just didn't look like he was the greatest fit for us. Because even that report that came back in 2016 that he was the worst coaching hire. Now, we saw a lot of guys like the Gus Bradleys and things like that, but we need to move forward and drop all of that, anything that ties to Doug Peterson, and just move forward. Like, you know, if they want to interview Press Taylor, they interview Press Taylor, but just let that be just a formality. But till next time, fly Eagles fly.